Okay, after King Solomon was king over Israel, after David was king over Israel, there was a series of kings that took Israel on the wrong path, as we know. There was a time when Israel was torn into two kingdoms under King Jeroboam and King Rehoboam. And King Jeroboam went to the north where the 10 tribes were, the 10 tribes of Israel. Now he was worried that what would happen is Israel wouldn't always follow him, because they would have to go to the temple of God every time there was a major feast. And so he didn't want them going to the temple of God and leaving the land of Israel down into Judah, from Samaria down into Judah. So what he did was he made 2 golden calves. And he said to Israel, "These are your gods." So we can see how the king led Israel astray. And this was a practice that continued on generation after generation of kings, with worship at high places and so on. In 1 Kings chapter 13, we have Jeroboam having just installed these golden calves as king, as their god. And at that time, a prophecy went out. A man of God out of Judah, someone actually Brother Kent referred to today, said that the altar would be broken in half, and that a child shall be born unto the house of David, and his name would be Josiah. And that Josiah would put things right again in the land. Well, of course, many other kings lived after that and worshipped in these high places. Manasseh and others. But finally one day, Josiah came to reign in the land of Israel. Does anybody know how old he was when he first took the throne?
8.
He was 8 years old. He was 8 years old. Isn't that something? Let's see what we can find out about him. 2 Chronicles 34 and verse 1. There we are. It says, Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. So he had a good long reign as a king, longer than many. Some 17 years, some just a few years. He had a good long reign. And he did that which is right in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the ways of David his father, and declined neither to the right hand nor to the left. And so we see that he follows God. At 8 years old, he had this wisdom. Now Manasseh, before him, at 22, just did what all the other kings had done in the past. But Josiah had that wisdom coming from God. So we see that wisdom can come from God at a very young age. How many people here are over 8 years old? By a show of hands. Yeah. Looks like most of everybody is over 8 years old here. So it's possible that all those people that put their hands up that are over 8 years old could have wisdom from God. Is that possible? And that you don't have to be 22 years old to have that wisdom. How about that? Would you agree with me? All right. One of the things that Josiah did is he started getting rid of all the idols, the false idols that were in Israel. It says, for in the 8th year of his reign, so he would have been 16, while he was yet young, he began to seek after the God of David his father, and in the 12th year, which would make him 20, he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places, and the groves, and the carved images, and the molten images. Alright, so does anybody know what a carved image would be? It'd be like a statue. And these are statues that people would worship as gods. How about a molten image? What would a molten image be? Brass or gold. Okay, so a carved image would be out of wood or perhaps stone, right? But more likely wood and carved. And a molten would be cast into some kind of they would melt it down. They fire it up and melt it down, and then they pour it into something to make it look like a golden calf or a man or whatever kind of image they wanted to worship. So he started to break down all these images, or these idols. Now, it also says that from the high places he purged the groves. Does anybody know what a grove is? Somebody said garden? Yeah, that would be one description of a grove. Yes. I don't know. Do you have anything in the margin of your Bibles that tells you? No, not necessarily. But yeah, they're like gardens or bushes or trees. There's, many groves were built in Israel, mostly in the high places. And they'd be trees where they would go under those trees and worship. Okay? Now, let's keep reading on. And they break down the altars of Balaam. Now, who was Balaam? There's a false god, Baal, or Balaam, in the presence. And the images that were on high above them, he cut down, and the groves and the carved images and the molten images he brake in pieces and made dust of them, and strawed it upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. Oh wow. He even took all the dust of all these things he destroyed and threw it over the graves of those that had been sacrificing to them. And he burnt the bones of the priests upon the altars and cleansed Judah and Jerusalem. And so did he in the cities of Manasseh and Ephraim and Simeon, even unto Naphtali with their mattocks round about. And when he had broken down the altars and the groves, and had beaten the graven images into powder, and cut down all the idols throughout all the land of Israel, he returned to Jerusalem. That's a pretty good king. Would you agree? Do you think God would be pleased with him? Cleaning the land of all these false gods and false idols. So, now that he's done all that, the next thing he does is he goes back to the house of God. And we find that in verse 8 of 2 Chronicles 34. It says, now in the 18th year of his reign, when he had purged the land and the house, he sent Shaphan the son of Josiah and Messiah, the governor of the city, and Joah, the son of Joaz, the recorder, to repair the house of the Lord his God. And so that's what they were going to do, and make it all good again. Get the workmen involved to repair and amend the house. Get all the artificers in there, and the builders, and to buy hewn stone and timber, and to redo the floor of the house which the kings of Judah had destroyed. And the men were faithfully doing the work.